Path of Exile 2 hit early access about a year ago to the day now. And across that entire time, we have had 2 major patches, with the 4th one slated for December 12th, 2025. So maybe you've been playing Path of Exile the entire time. Maybe you only played when it first came out back in late 2024. Well, in this video today, I want to chronicle all the major changes and give you an idea of what has happened across this entire year of patches and changes, and what we're about to get into with this December patch. Now, this is your first time on my channel. The way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So let me just give you the down and dirty of what happened. So in April 2025, we got the first major patch, Dawn of the Hunt. This brought the Huntress to the game, and although this was the first major patch, it was pretty lackluster. And in all honesty, when I get into stuff that is the bad, it's pretty much going to be chronicling the Dawn of the Hunt. The biggest thing that happened in Dawn of the Hunt was a rework for a lot of the skill gems, but really what it honestly did was it kind of broke a lot of things. Even though this brought a new class to the game, the end game suffered, balance suffered, there were a lot of meta issues. But in point 3, the 3rd edict, we did not get a new class. We were hoping to get the Druid, but we got a massive overhaul to the game, a new 4th act. The not challenger mode, but basically the more difficult version of the campaign was done away with, and we got interludes, we got support gem overhauls, we got new lineage support gems. Basically a lot of quality of life improvements to the game happened in that 0.3 patch that just happened back in August. Now, as we come ahead to the patch here in December, this is going to have a massive rework to the end game as well, making it so that we're going to deal with less mob density, but more challenging mobs as we go through the maps. This should help out with performance. It should help out with characters feeling that they're actually progressing through the end game of the game. We're getting a new class in the Druid, and of course, a slew of new league mechanics. Now, there are also balances and reworks, because they've said that, they've noticed that pretty much everyone just plays like Deadeye and Blood Mage, and there's just a heavy emphasis on lightning damage. So a lot of those have been changed and tweaked with the patch notes that we've already seen ahead of the December 12th update. But that is the too long didn't watch this entire video. I'm going to go into a lot more explanation here, and that difficulty I was talking about was cruel difficulty. I'm going to talk about how cruel's gone away, how we have the whole interlude system, how we now have a market system that is in the game. You don't have to use a browser anymore, how the new support gems work, because now support gems are not locked to one-time use. You can use them across any skill gems as many times as you want. All sorts of things that gives you an idea of what is coming, both with this patch, but what has happened across the entire year. So that's all you want to know. Please feel free to just go ahead and shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. You can jump ahead to any part of this video that interests you the most using chapters with the timeline in the description. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe if you find the information in this video helpful. You can also find a link to my Twitch below, where I will be streaming Path of Exile 2, doing giveaways, all sorts of fun things. Let's get started here on Path of Exile 2, a year in review. Loading into the game, let's talk about support gems. Now, I'm on the Eternal Realm, meaning this is a character that I made back in 0.10. And this is a change that happened to the 3rd edict, the most recent major patch to come out in August. So what happened was they made it so that if you created a support gem, let's say you created Bounty right here, you then would sock it into Quarterstaff Strike or Elemental Expression, whatever it is. I've got the whole list is right there if you want. But whatever you want to sock it in, you can sock it in. Previously, we were only allowed 1 support gem per character for a skill, right? So it's like, okay, Lightning Mastery could only be used here. If I check over here, I can't use Perpetual Charge or Shock Siphon anywhere else, right? I've got Shock Conduction, stuff like that. And a lot of these have changed names. So all this stuff was limited. Well, now, if you play on 3rd Edict or any of the leagues, the support gems are infinite, in the sense that I could put Thorn Skin into this skill 3 times if I had the slots. So this opens up a lot of build diversity, because I could also use Thorn Skin on something else, or Eternal Flame on something else, Deep Freeze, you guessed it, on something else, or Concentrated Area. So you're not locked into deciding, what's the spell, or what's the ability, what's the skill that I want to increase the area damage of. Well, now I can just do it all the ones I want to do it on, if I have the room for it or what have you. Also, 2 support gems. Let me go back to this one. This is probably the easier one to do. Yeah, this is easier to show. This has got Bleed 1, Bleed 2, Bleed 3. And they now will have, oftentimes it's cascading effects, but sometimes they'll have additional effects attached onto them. Like Leech 1 here. I'll actually just turn this off. I can type in Leech. Maybe we'll get all three of them. Yeah, Leech 1, 12%, 16%, 16%, and now Light Leaf by supported skills is not removed at full life. So some of them will have additional benefits attached to them, but they've made it so that support gems, again, are unlocked. You can put them wherever you want, as many times as you want across your build. And the support gems are also in this tiered fashion. Remember, too, everything has to be leveled up in this game and all that kind of action, but this is just a way to open up that build diversity. Now, there are also another type of support gem, and these are called legacy support gems. Remember when I said the word legacy support gem? I meant lineage support gems. Now, I don't have any of them because I've not been playing through the Third Edict, but this is a sample of some of what they are. And you can only get these from the end game. You have to go through the end game, you have to go through all the mini maps and all the processes and what have you to get access. And these are, again, support gems. And these all got a buff coming in the most recent patch. Every single one of these, for the most part, is getting some sort of buff. But this is, for example, here. Supports war cries, causing them to inflict massive amounts of corrupted blood on enemies in the area of effect at the cost of your life. Now, the corrupted blood was already a war cry support gem, so playing along with that and having a lot of fun. Some of those standard support gems have been combined, some have been changed name-wise, some have just been overall magnified, some have just been pushed into lineage gems. It just kind of depends on what it is. Uruk Smelting here supports any skill causing armor break and inflicts to be stronger. Fully breaking armor with supported skills permanently increases the physical damage taken by those affected up to a cap. So you can see that these are layered and they play into a specific play style that maybe you're trying to really amplify with a set build, a set character, what have you. And you can really play around with these as you kind of approach the end game. It gives the end game a better sense of character build progression because you actually have things that only unlock in the end game in a different way than they did before. In the way before, it's like, okay, I'm only going to get this level of uncut gem from this breakpoint level wise. Well, now you've got this whole system of lineage support gems that add even more diversity to that end game. We've talked about gems, but how does the game actually play a little bit different? Well, and it does. And with the addition of Act 4, they've gotten away with cruel difficulty. Remember, at launch, there's going to be 6 acts, and then the end game begins. Well, now they've gone away with cruel difficulty, like I said, because that would just jump you back to the beginning. You play Act 1, 2, 3, then basically Nightmare 1, 2, 3. Now you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you now have interludes. So these interludes happen here, here, and here as far as like the breakpoints for the levels. The interlude will only be available during early access, serving to fill the gap between Act 4 and Endgame. They will be removed with the release of Act 5 and 6, like I said. So just so you know, that's the intended use of this. It's just simply to act as a buffer to not make it so that you're constantly going through Acts 1, 2, and 3 as they do these major patch updates, Acts 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, with 2 cruel difficulty, whatever, it doesn't make sense. So these interludes just kind of give you a stepping stone, basically 54 to 60, 60 to 64, then 65 plus into the end game. And it shows you pretty much, how this works, where each location is, what general level you'll be through each one of these interludes, which I think is a pretty cool way to step us through this. And they kind of broke this down. I think it was either with patch 0.2 or 0.3, where they said like, hey, we're facing a problem of like, do we rush the acts out and then fix them in post? Do we do them one at a time and just work out a cruel difficulty? And this, I guess, was the kind of stopgap that they created, was we'll just make 3 fictitious apps that are just basically placeholders until we finish the other 1 then 2. And I think this plays a lot better because right now, or previously, you'd get through the game, then you have to restart the game, and there was kind of a slog to get to the end game. You'd really kind of just push yourself through the same content, and you'd hit those same buffers that you'd hit with the resistance penalties. Remember, every act you go through starts to give you those resistance penalties once you jump into cruel. So now you can get that really kind of played out here with the interludes. Now, in addition to all of those changes to the campaign and the narrative, everything, there's been a lot of quality of life changes to the game. So if I click over here, we're going to go into the market panel so I can actually just search for whatever item I want now. I don't have to go to an individual website to do it. I don't know. I'm just going to type in quarterstaff. I can't even think of anything. You know, spelling, clearly something I'm great at. Okay, here's Rapid Quarterstaff. Just press search, and there you go. I can go ahead, and I can go ahead through the process of doing this and buying these items. You can click right here, travel to the hideout, or ignore the player, and you've got all the prices and everything listed right there. So it's a pretty easy process, right? It's pretty much the same thing that we had on the website, just built into the actual game. For those that really care about the microtransaction portion of this thing, the My Cosmetics portion of anything you've been given through packs or anything like that, it's just easier to access now through all of these little tabs that you can really play along with, including tabs. Let's go over here to the stash real quick. Two of the biggest tabs that have been added are the Atlas map, or I'm sorry, the Waystones. And then we've got all of your sockets. Pretty much anything that will socket into anything that's kind of not irregular, but it's just something that's not standard, is all in this section. And this is really nice too, because these are nested. So it's like, okay, I've got 6 in here. Well, I've got 6 tabs for just this one. So every single one of these has tons of room that you can drop lots and lots and lots of each one of these, you know, map devices into it. So it's a lot easier to navigate that whole situation. The rest of this is the same, you know, when it comes to navigating through any of your tabs, as you would have imagined. Also, when it comes to purchasing things, there is a bit of a change here. You can see there's some context clues visually, like, oh, this is a magic item, got it. This is not, got it. I got this as a yellow just from this little context clue. So there's a little bit better hinting towards what things are just in general markets and everything like that. We also have a really cool new system called the Recombinator. So we had reforging before, and we had salvaging before. Now we have Recombinator, which I believe is from PoE 1. So it takes 2 items and allows you to pull suffixes and affixes off of them. So let's take a look at these guys. I'm just going to click and click. So, okay, this has a 54% chance to recombine these 2 items to just this one, taking these 2 affixes and suffixes, what have you. I'm sorry, prefixes. A prefix and a suffix are an affix. This prefix or this suffix, whatever it is, I'm just going to press it. It costs artifacts. And there we go. So it pulled off those 2 things that I wanted, and that was the result. So you can play along with this, and then you can go ahead and throw other gems into this, right? A lot more of the orb system can be then thrown into this and be played a lot, but pretty heavily. Special tabs. There we go. You can have a lot of fun with that, just throwing those in there and going crazy with it. So you have a whole system attached to all of this. And a lot of the current tabs, you can see currency has been overhauled too, because you have the different tiers now of all this. Essence has been overhauled. The unique one plays roughly the same. The flask one as well. So is the gems one. But a lot of these little tiny changes have made the game a lot easier to navigate and less clunky, especially if you're playing on a console. We also have changes to the passive tree. Now, if you're logging in for the first time on your Eternal Realm character, you'll see this, but you're probably going to be creating a new character with the new league. But just to let you know that is there, they're granting you a full passive skill reset. And if you take a look, the passive tree, especially in the Huntress section, is a lot denser. A lot of passives have been added in the last 2 major patches, giving a lot of density in these areas. It's really honestly pretty much everything like sorceress down to, I would argue mercenary, right? Has had its passives increase. So pretty much the entire right half of the passive tree has been buffed up quite a bit, or at least been improved. Now we will also be seeing this entire section of the tree be filled out with even more passives. We're getting 250 passives that are coming with the new patch, and 150 of them, and I'm not sure if they're locked to just the Oracle, but the Oracle will have its own special passive tree, which is one of the Druid's ascendancies. Now, in addition to all of those passive tree reworks and additions, we also have 3 new ascendancies, one with the mercenary in the tactician. We have another one with the warrior in the smith of Katava. And this one's getting a real big overhaul and change with patch 0.4. I think the warrior's in a weird spot, and I'll talk about this later. And I think it really is dependent upon getting access to different weapons of both the sword and the axe, which are 2 other classes that are coming to the game in the future. And then we got the Lich. These are the 3 new ascendancies that were added in. Of course, the Huntress has their own ascendancies in Amazon and Ritualist that is attached to their class. But in the 3rd Edict, they had kind of like a hidden ascendancy that people discovered, and it is the Abyssal Lich. So we have some new access to new ascendancies, and I'm wondering if there's going to be a hidden one here in this patch, or if the next patch will focus on them. They've even said like, hey, there's no guarantee all 3 ascendancies will be in early access, and there's not even a guarantee that all of the classes will be in early access. But this gives you a sense of a lot of new playability has come out, and the tactician is quite fun and quite good too, and has added a lot. It's got a big overhaul too in this most recent patch that's coming. So we talked about the good. What's the bad? Well, really the lowest point in the last year for Path of Exile 2 was actually the patch that brought the Huntress. This really broke a lot of big major builds that a lot of people were using, myself included. I was using the Ice Lightning Monk build that just was absolutely batshit insane. And I knew it would get nerfed, but it got substantially nerfed. Basically, like freeze builds got like 48% slower. It was a real kick in the teeth for a lot of those builds. And it caused a bit of a dirge in a lot of, I don't want to say the player base, but people were very despondent in patch point 2. I remember that patch point 2 came out kind of a week or two before last Epoch launched one of its big seasons. And all the hype for patch point 2 got sucked into last Epoch because patch point 2 was honestly really bad. It was a patch that had a lot of balance issues. It had a lot of build stagnation. Not a lot of people wanted to play with anything really of any kind of variety. And I think it really paved the way for the support gem rework that we got that allowed for a lot of builds to break out of their molds. And also too, there was a big hit with the game's actual performance, which is being boosted in patch point 4. That's not in the game yet, of course. So I didn't want to talk about it in the good section, which is the previous one that we just went through, of course. But a lot of people, the sentiment across the community was that people didn't want to even invest in it because it's just like, well, what if my build gets nerfed in the middle of this patch and I can't do anything? People were really worried about that. A lot of nerfs, a lot of build breaking, but I think that the resulting patch point 3 brought up point 2 in a good way. Patch point 3 also had a free weekend that gave people a chance to see how patch point 2, how they've really changed since patch point 2. So you have a much better step in a better direction. So that's our bad. Let's now get into the best things that have actually happened for the game. And honestly, I'm just going to be recapping a lot of what we talked about before. Because I feel like a lot of it comes down to the improved trade, which was a big hang up for a lot of people. A lot of people didn't know how to work the trade system. I didn't know the trade system was in the game until almost after my first month of playing, because I hadn't been playing Path of Exile 1. That was huge. That was a very, very big thing. The support gem redesign really brought a lot of build diversity to the table again. It broke out that stagnation that point 2 suffered from, because a lot of people were playing Huntress, a lot of people were playing Huntress in a specific way. Everyone just distilled down to playing like Deadeyes, or distilled down to playing Blood Mages and going heavy in crit builds, which we've kind of gotten back to that in a lot of ways. I think it's called like PoE Ninja is the website that allows you to pretty much see the meta. And improvements to a lot of quality of life stuff, including stuff like just the way that you navigate the game is a lot easier now. The UI, sprint is out into the game. There's just a lot more fluidity across every system. And I think another big thing too is breaking the monotony of the cruel difficulty, I think is a big thing. I think a lot of people beat acts 1 through 3 and stalled out in the middle of Cruel Act 2. Cruel Act 2's final boss, to me, was kind of an intentional gate. The game was telling you need to get your resistances up. You need to have build competency to get past this point into the final act before you actually even get to the end game, which is going to be a further buffer. So it's actually where I stalled out with my warrior. I was playing a warrior originally, and I had gotten to Cruel Act 2, and I had to slog through the boss. I got to Act 3, and I was just suffering. I made a monk, and I blitzed through almost all 6 acts in like half the time I had done on my warrior. So adding these interludes, adding Act 4, giving a better pacing to that whole system, I think opens the door to a much better player experience. Now, even though this is like the great section and the things that I like the most, I do want to say though, the end game is in still of a funky spot. I think it's better than it has been, and I think it's going to get really good with patch point 4 in the way that you interact with a lot of things. Like right now, Here's a quality of life improvement they made for 0.3. If you go, remember how you'd throw any of those tablets into the towers and it would increase things in an area in the end game atlas map? Well, now that's just done every time you activate a map device. So you activate a map device, you go to a location. Anytime you do that, you can amp up the difficulty with any one of those things that you previously had to do at a tower. Just a way better experience, a lot less systems to interact with and worry about and try to min-max your approach to doing things. And it just makes it so the door is wide open to you. So all those things have gotten a lot better improvements to them. But I just think that the end game still needs a little bit more meat to it. And now that is not my personal experience. That is anecdotal experience that I have gathered watching lots of content in the last week and a half to get up to par on what's going on. So please, if you want a better informed opinion of how the end game is going, go check out a YouTuber that specifically covers this. I want to be transparent with you. I want to be honest with you. I don't want to just say it's the best and you jump in and you're like, this is shit, that guy lied. I want to tell you what I've read, what I've seen, and what I've heard is it's better than it was. Patch 4 is exciting for big end game players, but it still needs some work and love. So with all that, what is coming in patch 0.4? What is coming in the future beyond that? Well, we know with patch 0.4, we're getting the Druid. And with the Druid, we're getting 2 new ascendancies, both the Oracle and the Shaman. And the Druid will have a shapeshift form of Wolf, Bear, and Wyvern, which is really fun. Now, we don't know if there's any other hidden ascendancies that are coming. There was a massive sweep to all of the, pretty much all the ascendancies, for the most part, got big tweaking. Deadeye and Pathfinder specifically got some good changes to the way that they fundamentally work. Smith of Catawba got a bunch of changes to, again, the way that it fundamentally works. And I think it helps out a lot. Deadeye was already very well played. Blood Mage didn't get anything negative to it. So if you're liking Blood Mage, don't worry, it's not going to change. So those are some big things. But patch 0.4 also hopes to bring a huge performance improvement to the table with almost every situation nearly doubling the performance. So that's a huge boast. To see how that plays out, though, on console, which is usually the biggest metric, I guess you say, measurement against how those performance improvements are actually hitting the game. That's what's going to be interesting. We'll see how that actually plays out for any of you console players. Now, of course, too, is those changes to the end game. They're going to be tweaking a lot of what happens with the end game as far as the scaling goes. I talked about this in the intro, but basically they did this in 0.3 where maps after tier 15 progress in density as well as difficulty. Well, that was part of the performance issue. And it was also so bogged down on the screen, you couldn't see what the fuck was going on. So they've removed the density, but kept the scaling intensity. You will start to deal with harder and harder monsters as you go through, not more and more and more harder monsters. I bet you there is probably still going to be some sort of very small sliding scale of density that is like on a much lower ramp, because I feel like you can't have the same density throughout the entirety of it. I feel like you kind of have to have a little bit as you start to get more and more, and not a lot, but maybe like every 10 tiers density goes up by like 5%. I don't know, but I feel like there has to be some sort of trigger with that. But again, they also said that they're going to clean up the visuals of the end game a lot, because so much of it just gets mucked up in doing any of the individual events that you can do in the end game. Right? There's like 7, 8 that you can jump into. So a lot of that has been cleaned up to coming into 0.4. Now, outside of 0.4, what do we get in the future? Now, of course, we don't know if we're going to be getting an early access end here soon. I think that it's safe to say that we'll get probably another 6 months at minimum of early access. They would probably hope to launch in summer. Total assumption, nothing to base that off of. Just going off of what I've heard feedback about the current state of the end game, I think they'd want it in a tighter spot before jumping out of early access. Now, what does that mean, though, for the remaining classes? Because we do still have classes missing from the passive tree, right? Dexterity is pretty much taken care of, and the mercenary is the only one we have in the strength dex department. So we're going to want, I think it's the Marauder that's going down there, and the Gladiator, or it's a Berserker. I think it's either a Marauder or a Gladiator, and then the Berserker. Berserker will go where the Warrior is. That'll be the one that brings Axe to the game. And Marauder or Gladiator, whichever name they decide to go with, will be what gets Sword in the Strength Dex department. We have Assassin, which is going to go into Dex Intelligence. And lastly, the Templar, which will go into Strength and Intelligence. So we still have those classes missing from the game. They've said that there's no guarantee that all classes will be in early access, but I truly think that you can't properly... I think the Warrior will always be an unbalanced mess. Not unbalanced, but maybe just in a poor state, because I think so much of the Warrior wants to jump to axes or swords and get more build variety into it right now than just simply using maces. I think it's a big problem with the Warrior. I'm hoping though, with the Druid and the Druid's use of totems and how talismans can be used on everyone, and you can shapeshift by simply using the talisman, and Bear focuses on a lot of the elements that Warrior already brings with jagged ground, with seismic stuff, with fire. I'm hoping that gives the Warrior a new lease on life, especially as we take a look at Titan or Warmonger, which is the one I have for my Warriors, Warmonger, and I've always wanted it to be better. But that's the future for Path of Exile 2. And I'm excited to jump into point 4. This is my first time coming back to the game seriously since I played during launch. So please check out a lot of the YouTubers that have been playing this game through the entire year. They have a lot of great things to say. Check out, Darth Microtransactions. I saw him at TwitchCon. That motherfucker is 7'14" and he doesn't ever say it. I don't know if anyone knew that, because I walked by him and I was like, oh great, I just looked up at the Ginger Tower because that guy's so huge. But plenty of people have been playing this game through the entire year, and they're going to have a more informed opinion. But I want to give you at least a crash course on a lot of the big things that have changed. And you can just simply find this by typing in like Path of Exile 2 major patches, and you'll get Google will give you an AI breakdown of all of it. I just kind of sleuthed through a lot of videos, a lot of Reddit posts, and a lot of the actual official patch notes to get a sense of what has changed over this last year. So if there's other big things that I missed that you want to really flag, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. Always want to make sure there is as much information out disseminated to the people as possible. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.